So speaking of software and kind of the experience of using these devices, so if we're talking about having NPUs on our machine, having GPUs on our machine, having CPUs, and I want to dig into CPUs in a bit briefly as well. So I'm going to get your subconscious thinking about
Yeah.
about CPUs in general. But when we have, I think it's pretty easy, at least in terms of utilization. The CPU is the most general of all of
Mhm.
these devices, and so I think we're used to probably most listeners are aware that CPUs are doing the most kind of general work, running your operating system. And what I'm trying to get to here is it sounded pretty obvious from what you're describing that in the future, or maybe even today, Microsoft will have automatic support when you're using, say, Windows for NPUs. So
Mhm.
you're talking about Copilot Plus features, text to speech, any of these kinds of things. They'll look for the best device available for running those, and if
Mhm.
there's an NPU on the machine, it gets sent there. So I get that for the kind of click and point operating system experience, but if I'm a data scientist, if I'm a software developer, if I'm an AI engineer, then what do I need to do to engage those resources?
Yeah.
What is my experience like? What software do I use to get access to NPUs, GPUs, or be
Mhm.
making the decision? How does all that work?
Yeah. Multi-part answer, I think, here. The first part answer is it's nothing you've not done before in some ways. GPU acceleration has been around for some time, right? You mentioned all the uses for the CPU. Like, yeah, I know of all of you and your 100 tabs that you refuse to clean and close. We know about you at Dell. We know you require some CPU juice. But GPU acceleration, it's been around. Solvers like Garobi have GPU support. CAD software, GPU accelerated. So the sort of tried and true methods of acceleration, the abstractions are sort of similar, right? And then you're going to start to hear about all kinds of funny name stuff. And it's really going to strike you as like, what is all this, right? You've got Llama CPP, you've got OLLAMA, you've got sort of to a lesser extent, CUDA's been around, but you've got this CUDA X layer now that sits in the middle. Like all of these things combine to have this plethora of stuff. And maybe not all of it is deployable at scale in like an enterprise environment. Like if you are a data scientist, sure, go pull Llama CPP and run a GGUF model, fine. You know how to do this. You will know how to do this. If all of these words are alien to you, 6 months from now, maybe John will invite us back and they won't be as alien to people anymore, right? But like the work that the folks at Unsloth are doing, the work that folks like The Bloke are doing. And these are all names you see on the Hugging Face boards of like these models getting rolled out. To land those on particular pieces of silicon requires that software layer. And if it's not a software layer, it requires sort of this abstracted API. Dell, and John, you opened this with, you are a devices company. That is what you are known for. And we know that that's our identity. To use the device to make the most of it, we've created something called Dell Pro AI Studio. It's a thing that lets you not have to worry about this as much if you are the developer of an application. I'll let Shirish talk a little bit more about Studio.
Absolutely. So I think that was very insightful-ish. I learned something from that too. So that was a great monologue there. I wanted to add
Monologue,
one
he
more thing.
says. Oh, God.
Sorry, cut that.
Shakespearean.
We gotta
No,
cut
we
that
are
one
we
out.
are not cutting that. That was perfect. Absolutely. That is in the episode. Mario, do not listen to the guests.
So yeah, I just wanted to add that the complexity of being able to bring your AI workloads and land them on the PC accelerators is not a trivial task, right? Ish painted a really vivid picture there, and it's not for the faint of heart today, right? So if you think about someone who's beginning their journey in, as an AI engineer, or who's trying to run um, AI locally on a PC, whether it's the GPU, the CPU, or the NPU, um, they have to make sure that they have the right format of the model, And if it's not the right format, they have to have the right tool chain to convert it to the right format. And that conversion process is different for every target CPU architecture, right? And IHV. So if it's Intel or AMD or Qualcomm or NVIDIA, you're looking at a completely different tool chain to go make that conversion. And then that it proliferates from there because you're talking about one model, right? Now, that's not how models are typically. There are model families. So if you want to make your entire model family of, say, Llama available, and you want to quantize them or do LoRa's or something, now you're really creating some tremendous, you're creating a huge tree now, right? Massive branches. So that's a task that is daunting even for experienced practitioners. So with that said, that's why Dell Pro AI Studio became almost an imperative for us to create. And we focused on abstracting away all of that complexity, all right? And um, the focus being how can we democratize access to AI on the device for the broader development community. So you don't have to be working directly with Intel OpenVINO and be 6 months into your journey there before you can actually land something on the NPU, because that's what it takes today, right? And more on Dell Pro AI Studio. That's the paradigm, right? Reduce complexity, go faster. I'll talk about some of the speeds that we've accomplished, right? So we did a POC with a partner of ours, Deloitte, and there's a white paper coming out on this pretty soon. We did a comparison of a use case that was built for on-device AI, and they'd already worked on it before they, used Dell Pro AI Studio, and then we normalized it to a team that was just beginning their AI journey, right? And so we kind of looked at it three ways, and what we learned was for the team that was just starting their journey with, say, Intel OpenVINO, it took them about 3 months to actually go from scratch to have an app that is fully integrated with a model that's actually running on the Intel silicon. And it took the same team with Dell Pro AI Studio about 4 days to do that. So, and that's not like a linear, simplification of time. That temporal concept is really, we just eliminated that engineering complexity for them. So that's the second reason why we built it, right? We wanted to democratize access for the developers at large to bring AI workloads to our PCs, and we wanted to make it quick and easy for them to land it on a variety of silicon. Um, and last but not the least, we also put in, a excuse me, an API that actually is following the OpenAI de facto API standard for hosts. And so if you are running a web app that is pointed to either an on-prem workload or even a cloud hyperscaler workload today, but you're using that OpenAI de facto spec, you can just make a quick one-line configuration change, point it to the local server on a Dell machine, and you're done. It is now running on a local model that's running on your device accelerator. So that's a long-winded explanation for what Dell Pro AI Studio is, but hopefully that resonates with
It all sounds great. One thing that I think might be helpful to me and to our listeners is to understand. I realize that, as you mentioned, there are lots of kinds of personas out there, but is there kind of like a user story that you could describe for us to kind of so that we can visualize, so that we can imagine what it's like for us to use Dell Pro AI Studio? Like, I think I get the functionality. It allows us to take advantage of all these powerful devices for whatever kind of AI workload we have. But what does it look and feel like?
In terms of real life application, and this, John, your question is also super salient because it's also about the bigger conversation around why would you ever run a workload locally? Like, why would you ever do that to begin with? Like, as a data scientist, as a knowledge worker, as anybody, why would you ever do that, right? Offline mode comes to mind, right? Like, if you want your AI based application to continue working, even when the person's on an airplane and has a lousy connection, guess what? You're going to want to run that workload locally. Reasons related to speed, cost, security, connectivity, all of these signals are the reasons why one might run a workload locally. And examples of those, John, models are not apps and apps are not models, right? The data scientist universe knows this, right? Like credit card fraud detection is the objective. Within that objective, there are many models doing different things. It's the same for local apps. Today, there are a lot of them like LM Studio, anything LLM, that make it easy and put a GUI on top of, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do AI work locally on my machine. Look through the app, abstract away the app, and start to think about you as a data scientist. What is the purpose of the thing you are building? That's what the GUI is going to look like. On the back end, the user doesn't care. Is it going up to the cloud? Is it going down to my silicon? The user literally doesn't care. They're going to care about the performance and they're going to notice that there's a difference, yes. But that's why there's sort of this routing objective around when you run workloads locally. And that's why Dell Pro AI Studio makes it as simple as a one-line config change. Instead of sending the workload up, you send it down. You just change where it's pointed at. And that's the whole point of what we've made. Shirish mentioned OpenVINO a couple of times. Dell Pro AI Studio is an extension of OpenVINO. Like OpenVINO's in there. We worked with Intel to bring this thing to life and to make it easy to use. And as are the OpenVINO twins from other people who make pieces of silicon, right? So the whole purpose of defining the use case, it's not about running something locally just to say you did. Although I enjoy that and I spend a lot of weekends doing it, right? It's also about when and why does this make sense? Am I forcing this down someone's throat because I want to? Or is there genuinely a reason this data related workload, this AI related workload should happen on the device?